So if you're anything like me, it's really frustrating trying to research products because you're going to the forums, you're on Facebook, you're trying to read everything and everybody's opinion, and it's a real problem trying to cut through all that marketing noise and BS. What I look for is a true apples to apples comparison on products. You know, the first step is you kind of have to have that come to Jesus talk, which is what kind of rig do I have, what am I going to do with it, and what kind of weight am I going to put in the vehicle. So let's start with your application. Are you trying to pre-run Baja in your brand new 4Runner, or are you going to be running some backcountry discovery routes in Oregon or Utah? That kind of leads you into, well, what is the right suspension for my application, what I want to do? So you've also got different technologies for all those different types of applications. So let's start with remote reservoirs. Remote reservoir systems are really, really neat, and they're designed for a specific purpose. One is shocks need to dissipate heat. They're just radiators. So you can do that a couple ways: oil capacity and surface area. But with a remote reservoir, as your piston pumps up and down, it's a linear movement of oil. So as this compresses, it pushes oil up to the top of the shock, through the crossover tube, and into the reservoir. And then as the shock strokes back out, the oil pumps back in. So in a race application, when your vehicle is going over big whoops and doing these, really articulating, that piston is stroking up and down, big on the compression, big on the rebound side. So hot oil is pumping back and forth. And that works great in that application. Putting a remote reservoir in your 4Runner or your Tacoma or a Land Cruiser, kind of stop and think about it. Where are you going to mount your remote reservoir? Well, you're probably going to mount it, they make clips for these to mount up against a shock body, which is fine, but it's not really in the open air. Or two, a lot of guys mount them on the outside of the frame rail, which is hot. So you've got all that engine heat pumping out, so you're not getting open air cooling. In buggies and race trucks, they're mounting their remote reservoirs high up in open air. So it is true that a monotube shock can provide a little more accurate level of tuning, of fine tuning. But if you think about it in a daily driver sort of application, you've got oversized tires, you're varying your tire pressure, you've got soft body mounts, you've got rubber bushings in your suspension, so that minimal fine level of tuning really fades into the background and gets kind of lost. So let's say you've got yourself a 4Runner or a Tacoma. What are you going to be doing with that rig? Well, if you're doing some overland touring or camping, if you want to go run the BDR with some friends or run some trails, the way a shock works in that application is the piston, it moves up and down a very short distance. In fact, it kind of oscillates. You'd be surprised how little running on gravel, dirt roads, washboard roads, how little that piston actually pumps up and down. And what that does is just like skipping rope. If you sit there and skip rope, you're going to get hot really quick, and so that's where you build heat. You don't build heat up in your remote reservoir, you build heat right at the piston. And so that's why with the Foam Cell Pros, we have the largest shock body you can get inside a coil. They're almost 3 inches, they're twin tubed, tons of oil. We have more oil in this Foam Cell Pro than in this remote reservoir over here, and the oil is right where you need it for the cooling. The FCPs have an external bump stop, triple lip seal. They have an 1/8 inch wall thickness. That means if you bash this thing into a rock, it is not going to break. The other great design feature of the Foam Cell Pros is even if you did get a hole in this thing, because of the technology with the foam cell and it not having a nitrogen charge, it might leak a little bit of oil, but it'll still perform. The shocks are so big that at the base, not only do they fusion weld the eyelets on, they also 360-degree weld them too. The Foam Cell Pros have one of the largest eyelet designs, which means we can get a larger bushing in there. The bigger bushing will absorb high-frequency vibrations a lot better. Bottom line is I hate seeing people get ripped off because they don't understand remote reservoir technology. Look, if you've got a race application, that's awesome, and by all means use it. But if you're running your truck on trails and washboarded roads and you're doing overland, this is the right application. It's such a great value, and they're so robust. With a 3-year warranty, they're never going to let you down.